Good morning. Happy Saturday. Yes, it's early. It's 9:30. At least for me, it's early because it's my one day I can sleep in the week and I enjoy it. But I'm glad that you're joining us. We're now conversations. These are conversations with book authors. I'm Lisa Marie Garcia. I'm part of a traditional book publishing house based in Florida state, but we work nationally and even internationally with our book clients. So welcome to the show. I'm going to go ahead and come on the stream, as they say, and hopefully you'll enjoy this broadcast. So let me come on. I was just testing this and I forgot how to do it. Just kidding. So, hi, good morning. So, I want to dig in today in speaking with our guest. It's published author, actually four-time published author, Damian Gerke. I want to bring him on stream, and I want to let you know that the purpose of this very brief 30-minute wake up and listen to us and join the stream and have your coffee, the purpose is to ask book authors questions that sometimes only a book publisher knows to ask. And then the other part of this conversation is to really dig deep into the purposeful reason that a book author decides to publish their book. So with that, we don't need to talk. I'm not the person that you want to hear from. You want to hear from our guest, Damian Gerke. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Lisa. It's good to be here.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for getting up early as well. And we already made sure that we both had our coffee and we're on the right caffeine stream, so to speak. Right? There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Damian, I could read your background, and I've known you now for probably less than a couple years, but a while. But would you please just let everyone know, what your professional background is and from where you speak, and then I want to talk about your books.
Sure. So I started out my career coming out of college as an engineer. I worked in the aerospace industry as a structural design engineer, and most of that time I had the good fortune of working on the B-2 stealth bomber. So it was pretty heady stuff for a young kid coming out of college to work on a secret program. I couldn't tell anybody what I was doing, and not even my wife. And so that was fulfillment of a boyhood dream. Loved it, absolutely loved it. During that time, though, I really began to realize what I enjoyed most was working with people. So I sort of made a hard right turn career-wise and went from engineering into ministry, went to seminary, and then was a vocational pastor for 15 years. During that time, I fell in love with coaching and just the fulfillment of being able to walk with people through really, big, tough, challenging or exciting seasons of their lives and helping them make, big decisions and just kind of make sense out of life. And so that's what I did. I transitioned out of pastoral ministry and started doing coaching, and that's where my writing career sort of took off. I had wanted to write and just didn't have the time, frankly, to do it, to give it the attention it deserved. So I wrote and coached, and then during that time had some corporate HR experience as well, helping the company learn as a learning and development manager, doing leadership development and performance management and things like that.
Thank you. And so today you are the business and leadership coach, and you've been
Yeah.
doing that for approximately 10 some years, correct? I forget the
Yeah. Well, actually, I've been coaching since about 2008. But I left back in 2019. I left my corporate role so that I could focus exclusively on coaching and writing.
Right.
Just corporate life is a grind, and there's just a lot of things that pull you away. And I just wanted to be in a place where, sort of as maybe a prompt for the book, like I just knew this is who I was, and I wanted to be in a place where I was really living out my identity to my fullest capacity, and that's where my flow is. That's where my fulfillment is, and I think that's how I can best add value to people in that
Into the
role.
world.
So,
I
yeah.
love it. Thank you for that setup. What you said, though, you said the word that I love, and it's so unique in terms of your message of the book, where we are. You said tough. You said the tough challenges, the tough answers, what's tough in the world. And your book is really about that. And I've got your books here. Your title of your paperback with us was recently out, and we actually sold out at the Barnes and Noble book launch in just less than 2 months ago. But it's called "Are You Who You Want to Be?" And I'd like to dig into that identity word. You say, are you who you want to be? And then your second book, The Field Guide, where you say a pathfinder to discover your identity and fulfill your true purpose. So key. So what everyone is looking for, including myself. Speak on that. Where did it come from? How did it start?
Gosh.
What's your take on it? I know it's a big
Yeah.
question.
So really the the transitions I've had in my career, excuse me, the transitions I've had in my career have really created space to ask that question, because as you're moving from in my case engineering to ministry, and ministry to coaching, at some point you start asking, well, like, who am I, and what is my best fit, and what is my purpose, and not even understanding, for me, it probably started off with, what's my purpose, what am I supposed to do, and I realized I couldn't figure out what I was supposed to do until I knew who I was.
Right.
And there was actually a song by Switchfoot. I don't know if you're any Switchfoot fans out there, but there's a song, and one of the chorus of the song, it says, are you who you want to be? This is your life. Are you who you want to be? And that song just opened up. That's where really this title comes from, the genesis of it. And it just opened up a lot of thoughts. And I had to recognize, no, I'm not who I want to be, not because I'm failing or anything like that. I'm not who I want to be because I don't know who I want to be.
Right.
And because I don't know who I want to be, I'm not sure that my life, I enjoyed ministry, I enjoyed engineering. It was completely, fulfilling. It was a good space for me, but it just wasn't aligning fully with my identity. And so that really started me on this whole journey of discovering who I am, and even, frankly, how to say this, the confidence that you can say, yeah, that you can answer yes to that question. I was recording a podcast this week, and the host of the podcast said, how can you, can you really know, can you really know? And I answered yes. I'm living in a space and with a self concept, a self perception, that I'm confident that I know who I am and who I want to be. And I'm not the perfect version. I'm far from perfect. In fact, when you find out who you are, you find out so many things that are blocking to be the perfect version of you, to fulfill that the best version of you that you can be. And so I see more, issues and challenges now than I ever did before, but I'm addressing those with confidence and clarity. And it's not based on my performance, and it's not based on my productivity and what people say about me and things like that. I'm able to be at peace, completely at peace.
Right.
It's an amazing place to be.
I'm 100% with you. Where if I'm asked that question, and I have been, how do you know that you know your purpose? Because I do say, yes, I do know. I have only known it for maybe 6 years. I might be off a little bit there, but it's only been the last 6 years of my 21-year life. Haha. But it's only been the last 6 years, but I 100%
Yeah.
know it. And I don't need to go into how I know it, but what I'd like to say is I definitely think that's a blessing to my life that I do know it, because without it, I was lost and I was searching in all those ways. So I agree. And I know I'm part of a percentage that could say that, you and I are part of that. And that is nothing that happened to do with me. It's just what I believe is a favor of God that I do know that. But All right. So one last question about the genesis of this book, book 3, and then book 4. So, you've been down this road of publishing before, and I hope we have a chance to get into that. I've also told this dream that we might have a question answer. So we'll see if there's any questions that come up for you at the end. But I'd
Great.
like to have you talk about how you've been working on this book for quite a while, and maybe some of the journey, because there's many people that listen to this that are aspiring to be an author, or they started and stopped and all
Mm.
that. So I'd like them to hear that for encouragement, if you would share that.
Yeah, so that's a I don't often get asked that question. So the reality is, when I transitioned out of this was 2008, when I transitioned out of ministry, I actually had a version of this book close to publication. I had an agent, had a mainline publisher, deal all worked out. We were going through the final steps. The publisher said, in December we're going to the pub board. It's just a formality. Like, I've already greased the skids. Like, it's just, we're right there. And then I don't know if you remember back this far, but 2008, 2009 was when, the Great Recession happened. And so the publisher pulled the plug on everything, not just my book. Like, they were totally in scramble mode, trying to figure out how to stay
Right.
afloat as a publisher. And so as an author, that was my first it would have been my first book. And it was really demoralizing, to take something that you had poured so much into, and it was probably at that point 3 years worth of work, probably more than that, but it was a lot of work. And just to be so close and to have that taken, quote unquote, taken away from you, was really demoralizing. And just during that time, it was hard anyway. So I really tabled the book and didn't come back to it until, 10 years later, just about. So what I realized, though, is the version of the book now is got 10 years worth of perspective and experiences that it didn't have before. And I'm so glad that it didn't
Right.
get published. And being a writer there is a perfection of craft that happens. It's like wine, you need to get started, and you need to keep going and never stop getting better, because you get better by writing. You write better when you write. And my encouragement is, don't get discouraged. You're going to have hiccups. You're going to have, for all these aspiring authors out there, let the seasons of struggle and drought and things like that, let that
Bring it together.
form. Yeah, let it
Yeah.
transform the
Yes.
depth of understanding and the way you articulate it and talk about it. Writing is a human experience, and it's not just a technical skill. It's a human experience. And for me, I would say it's an outgrowth of identity, that being a writer is part of who I am. I know I will write until am no more on this earth. It's just because it's who I am.
It's fantastic. I love that the writing is perfection of a craft. And when you said that, I thought, it's the 10,000 hours thing, right? It's
Exactly.
the idea, um, you know, uh, I understand. I have so many skills now, being in publishing industry for 8 years. Well, have so many hours, right? Sometimes I'm like, how am I so good? Just kidding. How do I see it a certain
Yeah.
way? Or, we know what not to do. Well, it's because of the 10,000 plus hours. So you are a prolific writer. I love that you have expressed how you'll never stop writing. I mean, you've got 4 books now that you've penned, and I've read 2 of them, from first word to the end word, and I just they're fascinating, engaging, and very
Mm.
impactful. Just wow, keep it up. Okay, so let me move to something else. What is unique about your book? And I want you just to describe it, because it's just a fantastic concept that you have in each end of the chapter of Are You Who You Want to Be? You've got this disambiguation section, and it's so cool and such a cool word that we capped it. And just explain what it is, what you're asking the reader, in those
Yeah.
sections at the end of the chapters.
Excuse me. So I use the word disambiguation like every I don't know if this is a hard and fast thing, but I have to pause and think about this. So probably just on off the top of my head, I'd say people that are 35 and older, they don't even understand the word. Like they're going, disam what? Are you making that word up? And people that are younger, 35 and younger, almost all of them know what it is. And most of that is because people that are 35 and younger are on Wikipedia all the time. And Wikipedia, it's a word that's where I saw it. And so this is sort of a reference to, I really wrote this book, which is distinct from the first version. I really wrote this book with millennials and Gen Z in mind. And now probably I should start saying Generation Alpha, because they are at the same time, they are the generations that are genuinely asking the question, who am I? And or at least verbally, they're expressing it. I think all of us ask it internally. Those two generations are brave enough, or maybe naive enough, I don't know, but I say that not disrespectfully, actually respectfully. They're the ones asking the question and seeking that answer, and sort of in my view, in my personal opinion, I think the resources to find your identity that are out there are really not helpful at all. I think, in fact, they're destructive. The encouragement to go be everybody you want to be, or be five different people at one time, or be one person in one social setting and another person in another social setting. I think that's incredibly destructive. Um, and I
And you
think
write
it's,
about that.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
So these are the kind of resources and avenues that are being openly promoted. I think all of us have this tendency, it's one of the things we all do in the book, by the way, just to give you a sense. I make a distinction between outside in and inside out. So
Yeah.
outside in is we depend upon our environment to tell us who we are. And inside out is, no, I'm clear on who I am. And so I can now move out into my environment and be and influence my environment instead of my environment influencing me. So we all tend to move outside in. That's just our natural tendency. But particularly for this generation, they are really dependent upon outside influences, and so I think it's just critical. So back to your question about the disambiguation. At the end of each chapter, I have what I call it's a section where it's basically a summary of the chapter, but so I'm making specific points, and then there's a big idea. This is what the chapter is about, and then each point is a point of disambiguation with a short description of why that's critical.
Right. Thank you. Thanks for explaining that. And I love those end of chapter, excuse me, those end of chapters. We're getting close to the end of the time. So
Yeah.
I'm going to skip a section, but I want to focus on your identity map. You
Mm.
created what you call and term an identity map, and it's brilliant, very, very unique and on par. So I want to have you explain what it is, how it works, and tell our viewers, please.
Yeah. So the for me, it's finding your identity is an ongoing process, because the more you seek, the more you find, and the more you find, the more clarity you get, and the more clarity you get, you start looking in other places, and so it's just a process. It should never stop, in my view. And so I wanted to create, one is, identity is this kind of abstract, woohoo topic, and I wanted to make it practical. And so I created a process. It's an annual process where you look back on who you've been in the last year. You sort of assess, is this lining up with who I understand I am and who I am aspiring to be, and then look forward with quarterly check-ins, at a sort of a weekly cadence, and using daily touch points where you can say, these are the behaviors, these are the characteristics, these are the character qualities, these are the values, these are the kind of relationships that I want to, and how I move in the relationships that I have in my life, that I think support being who I am. And you can do it in an hour. You can do it in, take an all day kind of retreat once a year, and use it by yourself, use it with friends. I encourage using it with some people that you really trust, and who are speaking in, and supporting you, and holding you, helping you to hold yourself accountable to be the person that you want to be.
And for the identity map, it's in all formats, right? I mean, how do people get it?
Yeah.
Because it's part of the book, but it's not in the book, so to speak.
Right. The identity mapping process is actually laid out in the field guide, not in the book. But I have it on my website as a downloadable resource, so people can access it, if they want to, or if they want a different printed version than what is in the book, they can download it and use that, and give it to their friends, and other things. So primarily, it's explained in the field guide.
Thank you. And I think it's fantastic that you're, offering this to the world. There's, coaches in that would try to sell it and, make it a product and that. And you just, when you put it together, it was very organic, right? After you were working on putting the field guide together. And the field guide is the field guide to the book, Are You Who You
Right.
Want to Be? So it's a
Right.
companion product. But I love that came up, just as part of the writing that was unexpected, so to speak.
Yeah.
All right. So I like to ask book authors to leave a inspirational action item or something to focus on for aspiring writers or book authors, like you said. I mean, it's 15 years that
Mm.
basically you started with Are You Who You Want to Be until publish, and I'd like you to share encouragement that I know what we say when we're meeting someone, but what would you say? What do you say in the conversations? And you have someone who says, I'm fatigued. Maybe you can focus on that because we hear that a lot. I had an author that said, I don't want to proof my book anymore. I'm over it. And I understand that. So there was encouragement that we needed to say. I mean, you've got a great story here with this being your third
Mm.
and fourth book after 15 years. And now you're on the other side, just recently with the book release. What would you say?
Yeah. Well, I would say two things. I said my identity as a writer. Um, so let me borrow from the book to make a point. Part of the point is, every single one of us is completely unique. Like, you are the only Lisa that will ever exist in human history. So that's part of what makes your purpose unique. Like, nobody else can live out your purpose. And unless you don't really understand your identity, you're living out to some degree less than your purpose, or only part of your purpose, or you're living out somebody else's purpose, right? Which just doesn't make any sense. So as a writer, you there's some technical aspects to writing, and you have to get the tense right, and word order,
All those levels of
sentence
editing,
order,
right? Yep.
all that kind of stuff. You got to get that right. But there's a dimension to your writing that can only be written through you. So don't there may be other writers that you aspire to be like, or that you appreciate their style or their approach, but find your own voice, because your voice is your voice. And as you know, in Are You Who You Want to Be, there's some stylistic things that I did that are completely unique, and they're just mine. And I kind of insisted, like, no, this has this. I'm open to feedback, but I want this to be like this, right? Um, and so the more you work at it, the more clear your writing voice becomes. And that includes even setback. That includes even reading your stuff. Like, part of the reason I didn't want to, I share that, like, I don't want to proofread my stuff again. But when I force myself to put on glasses that, and read it from someone else's perspective, I see things, I see gaps, I see what I would say are just less than ideal expressions. And you can tell it just doesn't get there. It's not quite saying what I want to say. And that only comes through the discipline of writing and reading. And it's a grind. There's a grind aspect, and you have to just embrace that grind and keep pushing forward.
You're so full of hashtags. I love it. I have to stop writing, but hashtag, you're so full of the grind and all of that. I love it. Well, I'm going in the notes on the show. We'll let you know how you can buy the book, areyouwhoyouwanttobe.com or damiangirk.com. There's up there on screen right now. You see the book. It's in every format: audio, iTunes, paperback, Ingram, Amazon, national, international, every format. So we're very excited about that, to give that to you and to provide that. And I just want to thank you for your perseverance, right? And we're excited for more books that you write, and appreciate you on the show, and connect with Damian. He's a very generous of spirit and heart person, so he'd be happy to help you and talk to you about finding out what your true purpose in life and building your identity. It looks like we're getting close to the end. It's saying end of broadcast here, so let me see if I can be my own engineer and see if there are any comments or questions if we have time. Let's see. Oh, everyone's so happy and appreciate what you have to say. So, all right. Okay. Well, happy Saturday morning, everyone. Please look for our show, Now Conversations, every Saturday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And keep writing. Find your purpose. And if you know your purpose and God's told you to share it, finish that book, publish that book. Any last words,
Hey,
Damian?
yeah, just in case people do want to find me, they can go to my website, damiangirk.com, and they can reach out to me that way or connect with me on LinkedIn.
Yes. Yay, LinkedIn. All right. Thanks again. Thanks, Damian.
You
Bye,
bet.
all.
Thank you.
Bye, all.